Yuji Itadori is frequently underestimated and shown disrespect in discussion about Jujutsu Kaisen. He is often referred to as a side character in his own series, with some asserting that Gojo is the true protagonist or that Yuta should have been the main character, the latter claim being surrounded by misinformation, which I will address today. I must admit though, I once briefly held this opinion, at least when speaking of Yuta, finding him more interesting than Yuji after the events of Zero. And now that I look back, it's probably because Yuta in that instance fit the standard mold of a shonen protagonist, but my perspective has shifted since the Shibuya incident. But before we get into that, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. I make these types of analytical content on anime, manga, video games, and all things pop culture. So if you're into that, I'd greatly appreciate you helping me get to 20K by the end of the year. If you want to take that support a step further, consider becoming a Patreon or even a channel member. I also have a Twitter if you want to interact with me outside of these videos, so feel free to follow me there. If that's not your style, why not pick up some merch from the channel's continuous sponsor, Boomslank. Using my link, you will get 10% off your next order. And with that being said, let's get back to the video. Jujutsu Kaisen is incomplete without the presence of Yuji Itadori, as he brings a unique contribution to the story that is not replicated by characters such as Gojo or Yuta. Yuji imbues the narrative of Jujutsu Kaisen with a sense of optimism amidst the prevailing gloom. A story like this necessitates the presence of a wide-eyed, hopeful teenager like Yuji, someone who undergoes gradual transformation while retaining the elements of his pure heart. I find Yuji to be more captivating compared to Gojo or Yuta. This is primarily because Yuji consistently employs creative tactics in his battle, which makes it more engaging to observe. In contrast, the other two characters, who are among the most powerful in the series, tend to easily resolve most conflicts that they're in. Look at Yuta in Sendai Colony, for example, or everything that Gojo has done up until this point. Although these two characters possess relevant attributes that is relatable to the reader, both Gojo and Yuta are equally pure of heart, role models with relatable lows and highs in their story. With Yuta, it's his struggle with suicide in the film Zero, finding purpose and reason to keep moving forward, to stop blaming himself. And Gojo, his struggle with loneliness, failure, and loss of a friend during the hidden inventory / premature death arc, but continuing to move forward. These two do not possess the same underdog quality as Yuji though. While Okotsu and Satoru possess immense power that could effortlessly defeat Mahito, their characterization and perspective on death and violence differs significantly from Yuji's. It is Yuji's innate goodness and hopeful outlook that truly shines in the face of Mahito's nihilistic evil, creating a compelling narrative of two polar opposites clashing. Yuta and Gojo lack this nuanced dynamic though. Moreover, Yuji's character arc throughout Jujutsu Kaisen, shaped in part by his interactions with Mahito, deserves recognition. Witnessing him transform from a novice with minimal knowledge of Jujutsu sorcery to a seasoned fighter grappling with moral dilemmas is captivating. His initial detachment from the world contrasts beautifully with his growing understanding of responsibility and sacrifice within Jujutsu sorcery. Yuji is Jujutsu Kaisen's Shiro Emiya, a character defined by many things, but one of them being his hero complex, a desire to be a hero of justice and save as many people as possible, sometimes inhumanly so. Unlike Shiro, who occasionally adopts questionable methods to achieve his heroic goals, similar to his father Kiritsugu, Yuji clings to his moral compass despite the immense pressure to compromise. Yuji's internal conflict regarding killing adds a layer of complexity to his character. He's remorseful for taking the lives of Iso and Kechizu, that remorse being apparent even after the fact when he meets Choso in Shibuya, remembering that the two cried before they died. Yuji's unique characteristics and moral compass elevate his interactions with Mahito beyond a simple power struggle. Their contrasting ideologies and evolving personal journeys fuel the heart of Jujutsu Kaisen, making their bond one of the most compelling aspects of the narrative. Yuji's presence within Jujutsu Kaisen transcends mere combat prowess. He serves as a potent catalyst for purpose and unity among his peers, imbuing their lives with new meaning and fostering a sense of hope amidst the despair. Consider the plight of Nanami Kento, facing death's imminent embrace during his second encounter with Mahito, Nanami felt shrouded by an unsettling void, the specter of failure and meaninglessness gnawing at him. Yet, his perspective underwent a stark shift upon witnessing Yuji alive and well. A feeling of relief swept over him. Everything would be okay now that Yuji Itadori is here. Recognizing the torch had been passed, as it were, rekindling a spark within Nanami, propelling him forward with renewed purpose. Washing his feelings away, allowing him to die, smiling with no regrets. Similar to his first encounter with Mahito, where he was ready to die in a similar way. In a similar light, Nobara's final moments bear witness to the impact of Yuji's spirit. The vision of his face etched upon her fading consciousness serves as a potent testament to the value she found in her shared journey at Jujutsu High. It is a final affirmation that her life, however fleeting, and that the time she had spent with her friends held significance, despite not being able to meet her childhood friends again. Yuji is a pillar of Jujutsu sorcery, a reminder that no matter how hard things get, how strong your opponent may be, that with enough hard work, determination, and people around you, the impossible becomes possible. Another interesting dynamic within the series is that of Yuji and Sukuna. Yuji being the vessel for the King of Curses, being forced to witness the massacre of Shibuya and carrying that guilt with him, not folding under the pressure, but instead using it as motivation as the series goes along. Despite Yuji not killing the people directly, his hands are still stained with the blood of hundreds, if not thousands of people, being forced to watch as the memories flood into his head, Sukuna taking pleasure in that fact. Sukuna being part of Yuji brings a different spin on the inner demon trope, so prevalent within shonen, especially when the latter half of the manga is concerned. There is still so much left to discover about Yuji. He's an enigma in the Jujutsu Kaisen world, even more so than characters like Gojo or Toji, because Yuji was on track to becoming a normal boy if it wasn't for the interference of a certain Kenjaku, creating the cursed womb that we know today. Now, I don't know where else to slot in this segment, so I think here is appropriate. There's a lot of misinformation about Yuta being the original main character of Jujutsu Kaisen and being swapped later, which isn't true. Yuta was never the main character of Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen 0 was originally a one-shot called Tokyo Metropolitan Cursed Technical School and was later canonized as a prequel. When speaking about the main series, Jujutsu Kaisen, and specifically its main character, Gege went on record saying, and I quote, "The one thing I knew for certain going in is that I wouldn't continue Yuta Okotsu's story. Instead, I wanted a brand new hero," end quote. And thus, Yuji Itadori was born.
Hey there. It's been a while, huh? Let's go home, Rico. Okay, job's done. You're free to go now. Suguru, should we kill these guys? Does there really need to be any point to it?
Satoru Gojo is the strongest. That's a statement that I don't think anyone would disagree with when speaking about the best of the best in Jujutsu Kaisen. His only rival is Ryoma Sukuna, with Ghetto being hailed as the strongest in conjunction with Gojo during the Hidden Inventory / Premature Death arc, and I'd argue during the events of Zero. The only other person of note that could match Gojo is possibly Yuto Okotsu, being described as second to Gojo. But what if I told you there was someone else? Someone who would fundamentally change Satoru Gojo as a person. Someone who would beat him and in doing so humble him to the extent of changing his entire mindset, his entire worldview, and would be a crucial component not only to Gojo's title as the strongest, but Ghetto's downfall as well. This person is Toji Fushiguro, who fundamentally changed the status quo of Jujutsu Kaisen forever. So, let's talk about it. But before we get into that, please, if you're new to the channel, I do this kind of analytical content. If you like that, please consider subscribing and ringing that bell, leaving a like on this video, and if you're an old subscriber and you want to take that support another step further, I do have a Patreon, or you can opt to become a channel member. If you want some cool anime merch, check out my collaboration with Bloomslank, use my code GRIMGAMESH for 10% off, all those links in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's get back into today's video. Before we get to Toji, we need to talk about the Hidden Inventory / Premature Death arc as a whole, which just wrapped up its adaptation in Jujutsu Kaisen's second season at the moment. This arc takes us back to 2006.
I've never felt like so meant to love, boy. I've never
simpler time before Sukuna's fingers were eaten by Itadori, before Yuta Okotsu was recruited to Jujutsu High, and before Gojo and Sukuna were duking it out. And what I love is that the anime shows this within its opening, and I usually don't break down openings and endings, but I feel like this arc is a special case. It encapsulates the fun, carefree attitude of these characters in their youth, and it's such a tonal shift from how dark and depressing the first season and JJK 0 could get. It sets the tone going forward, and that cannot be understated. So let's recap. Tengen is an immortal recognized as the cornerstone of Jujutsu sorcery. He assigned a task to Gojo and Suguru, two outstanding Jujutsu sorcerers from Jujutsu High, to escort the star plasma vessel Amanai Reiko, a girl who was handpicked as the ideal match to fuse with Tengen. So the two of them embark on their escort mission to keep the balance in check. Nonetheless, an assassin known as Toji Fushiguro intervenes in an attempt to assassinate the star plasma vessel. So with that brief summary out of the way, I can finally talk about how Gojo became the strongest sorcerer since Sukuna, and how Ghetto fell down a dark path in the process. And it all starts with Toji Fushiguro. The father of one Megumi Fushiguro. In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, people like Toji are anomalies, just like Miles Morales in Across the Spider-Verse. Toji should not exist. He possesses the trait of heavenly restriction. Now, heavenly restrictions are characterized as bindings that are placed on the body of a sorcerer following their birth. These bindings typically allude to constraints on the human body in return for greater capabilities in a different function. A heavenly restriction, for example, can cause a sorcerer to be born with minimal cursed energy to be physically gifted, and the inverse is true. A sorcerer can be born with considerable cursed energy and have an extraordinarily weak body. Toji, unlike any other known case, does not have cursed energy. Literally zero. His heavenly restriction entirely eradicates cursed energy from his body. This renders Toji invisible to other Jujutsu sorcerers, allowing him to pass through obstacles undetected or even sneak past the Six Eyes. This increases his unpredictability in battle and prompts others to misjudge him solely on his cursed energy. His incredible physical prowess compensates for his complete lack of cursed energy. While some people have received heavenly restrictions that have brought their cursed energy back to normal levels, Toji's the only case where it's totally removed from his body. And in doing so, it has sharpened his skills to the point where all of his five senses are at their peak, on top of the fact that he can freely interact with curses. Toji possesses a cursed spirit that can hold a variety of objects within its body. He can easily swap weapons by inserting and removing them from the curse's mouth. This curse has the ability to shrink within its own body, allowing Toji to eat it and prevent individuals from detecting the cursed energy it produces. That said, this alone isn't enough to defeat the likes of Satoru Gojo and Suguru Ghetto. Regardless of age, Gojo and Ghetto are formidable opponents in their own right, and if Toji were to take them head on at their peak, he'd most certainly lose. Now, when I say peak, I'm not referring to Gojo right now in the story or even Suguru in Film Zero. Allow me to elaborate. Toji is not only extremely physical capable, but he's also brilliant. He knew who he was up against, the two strongest, one of which possesses the Six Eyes, an ability that had noticed Toji for the first time in his life. So he had to get creative, and taking them on one by one isn't what he had in mind. He still needed to deal with the powerhouse that is Satoru Gojo. So what does he do? Well, to find that answer, we need to look at Reiko Amanai. She is the target, and she's a very valuable target if it wasn't already clear, with the two strongest sorcerers at the time safeguarding her, being so valuable that she'd have a bounty to match that value, something that Toji had partial access to via a deposit he used at his advantage. This is why Toji is brilliant. He took his deposit of 30 million yen and created his own public bounty for Reiko Amanai, luring sorcerers from far and wide to claim said bounty, and in doing so, weaken Gojo. And as we all know, he succeeded. What I love about Reiko's death is the build-up. She fundamentally played a part in changing Gojo as a character as much as Toji did. Gojo went from a person who didn't see the value in protecting people weaker than him to forming a strong bond with Reiko and understanding that weak or strong, People are people, and life is just as valuable no matter how strong you are. Going out of his way to make Riku feel as comfortable as possible and have as much fun as possible, because her life would fundamentally change after she became Tengen's new vessel, leaving her old life and friends aside forever. This is why her death was so pivotal, and the reason why she died is because of Gojo's weakness. If Gojo didn't lose to Toji that day, I'm confident in saying he wouldn't be the sorcerer he is today, and the people under his wing most likely wouldn't be as strong as they are today. Before Toji, Gojo was the strongest at that point, at least if the mainstream is to be considered. And he knows it. He didn't need to train because until Toji, no one could beat him. Gojo was on death's door, and that forced him to learn reverse curse technique in his dying moment. But it was already too late. Gojo's failure to stop Toji fundamentally not only changed him, but Ghetto and the story going forward.
I screwed up pretty bad. You're not the one at fault.
Because he failed, Reiko Amanai died, and because she died, Ghetto started having doubts due to the people cheering because of her death. They got what they wanted. Gojo's failure got an innocent girl killed before her time, right when she had decided to make up her mind to continue living life as her own person. And that's something he would not forget. After that, we see Gojo push himself to perfect his limitless to the point where it's always active. And to circumvent any lasting damage it could do to his brain, he enhanced his reverse curse technique. But this isn't the only thing that Gojo's failure set in motion, as I said before. Reiko Amanai's death also had lasting effects on Suguru Ghetto. While Gojo sought betterment for himself, he looked towards the future. Ghetto spiraled downward, staying in the past, suffering PTSD from the events. You could hear the clapping. No matter where he went, he left the field. As Gojo grew stronger, Ghetto stayed the same as he continued to spiral due to his loneliness.
Huh? Don't make me repeat myself. Suguru killed everyone in the village and...
I heard you the first time. That's why I said huh to what you said.
Suguru's old home was already an empty husk as well. Though from the bloodstains and residuals, he most likely killed his parents.
Like hell he did!
Satoru, calm down. I don't understand what's going on either.
Gojo was so focused on his own betterment, not being able to see the change within Ghetto until it was too late. Ghetto's descent into madness mixed with his departure broke Gojo on a fundamental level. The straw that broke the camel's back, though, was his last words to Gojo. Are you the strongest because you're Satoru Gojo? Or are you Satoru Gojo because you're the strongest? Gojo was very much of similar mind to Ghetto in this instance 1 year ago. This would make Gojo a hypocrite. Is Gojo's way of thinking right because it's what he believes is right? Or is it only right because no one else could stop him from doing so if he tried? This puts Gojo's identity into question, and it shatters him because it's coming from the man who was his moral compass, the only person he viewed as his equal, the only person who could understand the loneliness of the title, the strongest. With Suguru gone, Gojo vowed to cultivate strong allies, people who could surpass him, so that no one would ever feel that loneliness he and Ghetto felt. He came to a conclusion that he couldn't save everyone, no matter how strong he had gotten. He also couldn't save people who didn't want to be saved.
The least you could do is hit me with some curses.
The Zenin clan didn't die because of bad luck. They destroyed themselves by believing that a person's value exists entirely inside their curse technique. If you didn't have one, or if yours wasn't impressive enough, you didn't matter.
Toji Fushiguro, Maki, Zenin. Two people born into the same clan, written off for similar yet different reasons, and shaped by the same belief system. And in trying to prove that people like them were worthless, the Zenin clan created the exact conditions that led to not only its own demise, but proved that the people they deemed worthless would become the most valuable individuals that Jujutsu sorcery has ever seen. The Zenin clan doesn't just value strength, they reduce human worth down to cursed energy. In their world, a powerful inherited technique means you have value. Weak or absent cursed energy means you don't. And anything that can't be measured through Jujutsu hierarchy is ignored. This is important because the Zenin don't believe people become valuable. They believe that value is something you're born with, encoded in your cursed technique. And once that judgment is made, it's final. Toji is the clan's first contradiction. He's born with zero cursed energy, which to the Zenin means zero worth. Despite being an anomaly and reaching peak physical prowess beyond that of a regular sorcerer, they don't attempt to mold him. They simply discard him, and in doing that, they create a blank spot in their own system. At first, they didn't fear him, but they would soon learn to. Toji's strength was unquantifiable, and was always the looming threat that he at any moment could obliterate the entire clan, and they would be powerless to stop him. And despite knowing this, they still didn't treat him with respect. No cursed energy means he can't be sensed, he can't be categorized, and he didn't follow the rules that the clan depends on. Toji becomes dangerous not because he rejects the system, but because the system literally rejects him. Here's where the self-fulfilling prophecy of the Zenin clan begins. Someone without cursed energy can never have value. So, they offer no guidance. They invest nothing in Toji's future, and in doing so, they guarantee that any strength he has will exist outside of their control. Instead, they fail to see someone capable of killing sorcerers who should, by their own rules, be untouchable. And in doing so, he left the clan and became the man who left the curse of the Zenin clan behind. Something we'll talk a bit about later. But before we get into that, let's talk about the channel's continuous sponsor, Boomslang. Boomslang is a clothing company that creates stylish anime-inspired designs. Right now, its Zodiac Collection hoodies have been steadily growing. But they don't stop at clothing. Phone cases, stickers, notepads, you name it, Boomslang has it. And using my link and code, you get 10% off your entire order, and I get a little cash back. It helps out the channel, so do yourself and do me a favor by checking out Boomslang today. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Greatly helps out the channel. Maki is treated differently than Toji, but the foundation is the same. She has minimal cursed energy, she lacks a powerful inherited technique, and she's a woman. Unlike Toji, she was going to force them to acknowledge her strength. She's denied authority and mocked openly, not because she's proven incapable, but because the Zenin have already decided what she's allowed to be. And what makes it worse is that Maki's full potential would have never been unlocked due to the nature of her birth being the twin sister of Mai. And twins in Jujutsu society are viewed as one person, and within that comes big limitations. Mai was given a cursed technique, but it was far too weak because Maki still possessed some cursed energy, and vice versa. The heavenly restriction placed on Maki would never reach the heights of Toji due to Mai being alive. All the odds are against her. For the Zenin clan, cursed techniques determine value, but gender determines worth. Even if she excels, she's never meant to represent the clan. Her existence challenges two things at once: the idea that cursed energy defines worth, and the idea that authority belongs to men. So the clan responds the only way it knows how, by minimizing her. This is the core tragedy of the Zenin clan. Within the belief that people without strong cursed techniques are worthless, they treat them as such. That treatment limits opportunity, breeds resentment, and forces growth through suffering instead of support. And eventually, the people they dismiss become powerful in ways the clan never prepared for. Mai's death is the direct result of the same system that crushed Maki and Toji. Mai is forced into sorcery because Maki decided to become a Jujutsu sorcerer. She's denied choice and denied escape. Her final act gives Maki more than just strength. It removes the last emotional tie keeping her inside the Zenin world, and removes the limit placed on her heavenly restriction by eliminating the last bit of cursed energy she had. Maki's destruction of the Zenin clan wasn't simply about revenge. It was inevitable. Every person she kills is someone who upheld a system that said your values decided by birth, your suffering is acceptable, and your humanity is conditional. The clan ultimately crumbles because it never allowed itself to change. Let's look directly at Maki and Toji. Toji is often described as the man who escaped the Zenin clan, the man who left it all behind. But the truth is more uncomfortable than that. Toji escapes their rule, he never escapes their judgment. He rejected Jujutsu society on the surface, sure. He abandoned the Zenin name, he lived outside their hierarchy, but deep down, Toji still measured himself against the world that rejected him. And nowhere is that clearer than in his fight with Gojo.
Hey there.
When Gojo awakens, Toji doesn't walk away. Toji says it himself. He wants to prove something, not to Gojo, but to himself. Even after leaving the clan, Toji is still trying to answer the question that was carved into him. Was I ever worth anything without cursed energy? And that's why Toji dies.
I wanted to take down the pinnacle of the Jujutsu world and the Zenin clan that rejected me. I've twisted myself into knots for so long, all to try justifying my life. But that was the moment I truly lost.
Not because he's weak, but because he still needs validation from a system he claimed to reject. This is why Maki succeeds where Toji failed. Maki's arc looks similar on the surface. She has minimal cursed energy, she gains overwhelming physical power, she becomes something the Zenin clan can't classify. The difference is how she moves forward. Maki doesn't try to prove herself, she doesn't seek acknowledgement from Jujutsu society, she doesn't challenge the strongest to validate her existence. After Mai's death, Maki doesn't ask, "Am I enough?" She already knows the answer. Her strength isn't built on opposition, it's built on release. She lets go of the need to be recognized, the need to reform the clan, and the need to seem as worthy, and because of that, she survived. While Toji fought the symbol of the system and died, Maki erases the system itself. That's why Maki is the one who completes Toji's arc. Toji broke the rules, Maki removed the need for them. Ranta makes a statement that Maki had become like Toji, and reveals that Toji could have put an end to the Zenin clan, but he chose not to. Maki becoming Toji fully realized is the completion of his character arc by killing the Zenin clan, thus freeing herself from the clan's curse as she no longer needed to prove herself. Unlike Toji, Maki truly became free. Now, similar to my last video, I want to close this one off by taking a look at a song by Logic and how its final verse relates to everything I've said. Let's take a listen to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood from Logic's Ultra 85 album. Logic's verse here isn't about rap. It's about realizing too late that the system you gave everything to was never built to value you, only what you represented at your peak. That's exactly the tragedy of Toji Fushiguro. Toji grows up in a world where worth is measured by cursed energy, technique, and potential. He spends his entire life trying to escape that judgment, but he never escapes the question behind it.
You'll never have the passion that you had, cause you were trying to make it out and end up like your mom and dad.
That line fits Toji perfectly. Toji's entire life is defined by making it out of the Zenin clan, out of Jujutsu society, out of a system that told him he was nothing. But when he finally does make it out, when he's strong, feared, unmatched, the victory feels hollow, because strength alone doesn't give him meaning. It just gives him distance. Logic references Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for a reason, because the main character, Rick Dalton, isn't talentless. He isn't weak, he's just out of sync with a system that's moved on without him.
What was that? Jesus Christ!
That's Toji. By the time Gojo awakens, Toji's already obsolete, not because he's weak, but because Jujutsu society has escalated past the kind of strength he represents. Gojo is limitless, generational, endlessly scalable. Toji is finite, and he knows it. That's why he fights Gojo anyway.
Cause ain't no way that you can do what you've been done.
Toji can't go back. He can't relive his climb. He can't prove his worth in a world that's already decided what that future looks like. So he does the only thing left to him. He challenges the embodiment of the system that rejects him and dies for it. This is where Maki completes his arc and surpasses it. Toji dies trying to prove that he still matters in a world that moved past him. Maki doesn't. She doesn't fight to reclaim relevancy, she doesn't chase the summit just to feel it disappear beneath her feet. After Mai's death, Maki understands something Toji never fully did. You don't win by being recognized by a broken system. You win by no longer needing it. Where Toji measured himself against Gojo, Maki measures nothing at all. She doesn't ask if she's strong enough, she doesn't ask if she belongs. She ends the conversation entirely.
Finally reached the summit, felt my stomach plummet still, cause I realized it's all about the cloud and not the skill.
The curse that kills the Zenin clan is entirely self-made. They don't need an enemy clan. They don't need divine punishment. They destroyed themselves by repeating the same worldview, even when reality keeps proving them wrong. Toji proved that the Zenin clan was wrong. Maki made sure the same mistake would not be repeated a third time. He was strong enough to escape them. She was free enough to end them. This is Grimtoki. This has been Beyond Animation. If you like anything I had to say, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.